the Quality Assurance Agency has a legal mandate that specifies, among others, establishment by an appropriate legal instrument such as an act or a statute or statutes. You all know when you are setting up a higher education institution, it is very important for you to know the Act, the Universities and Other Tertiary Institutions Act. Short of that, you are bound to make mistakes. That is our governing document. That is where we derive our mandate. A, functions and responsibilities, including the scope of the Quality Assurance Agency. They are all spelled out in that act, including the activities. Standard 2, vision and mission statement. The agency must have a clear vision that describes where the higher education is to go. While the mission statement will provide us with the vehicle of how to achieve that vision. So these two must be clearly displayed. For those of you who have ever visited National Council, you will find that it is just at the reception. It is what welcomes you. The vision, the mission statement, and the core values. So there shall be a written and published vision and mission statements, objectives taking the higher education context into account. The vision, mission, and objectives show that A, quality assurance is the major activity of the agency. There is a systematic approach to achieving the vision, mission, and objectives. There must be a strategic plan which describes how the vision and the mission will be achieved. Standard 3, we have governance and management. You remember from yesterday's interaction, one member did raise concern about the existence of a quality assurance officer in our Act. When you look at the Act carefully, it spells out the governance structure and the management of the agency. So there shall be defined structures that ensure sound and ethical governance and management, including good practices of quality assurance that support its mission and the legal mandate. The agency has qualified and experienced leadership. For example, if you look at the National Council for Higher Education, you cannot be the executive director when you are not at the level of a professor. You cannot be the executive director when you have never served as a vice chancellor. Next, has relevant governance bodies, such as governing body, for us we call it council, and various committees, like in the National Council, we have 3 subcommittees of council. We have a quality assurance subcommittee. We have finance, planning and management subcommittee. Then we have ICT, innovation and documentation subcommittee. Those are the subcommittees of the council. The QA has procedures for the appointment of the governing body, the chief executive, has policies and procedures for financial and management decisions, has a clear communication system of its activities, ensures a regular consultation with stakeholders and follow-up actions on key issues of policy and operations. Whenever we are coming up with something new, before we release it out, we make consultations. Even after releasing, if there is need to carry out some reviews, we make consultations. So as I talk now, we have a program accreditation workshop going on. And in that workshop, we invite you as the key stakeholders, we interact with you, we hear from you what we need to be put right, what we should maybe improve or remove. Upholds a high degree of institutional integrity and responsiveness in the management of institutional affairs. This is also key. Has effective processes for deterring, detecting, and dealing with misconduct by staff. Has effective, systematic, timely, and fair processes for investigation of complaints, grievances, and appeals by staff. We have, as a regulatory body, we have a mechanism put in place that allows us to receive all these. We have an email, whether a student, an employee has any complaints, we just post and we act. Standard 4, independence of QAA. The QAA shall be independent in its operations, outcomes, judgment, and decisions. The QAA makes independent decisions and judgment that are not subject to change by third parties. You have had situations whereby National Council has been dragged to court. So these are some exceptional cases on our decisions. National Council says this decision does not meet the minimum requirements of licensure. The upcoming institution says no, we are being sidelined. So the institution goes to court and the institution is licensed via court. Professor Mawa will shed more light on this, what happens in other countries in the region. Citing one, Tanzania Commission for Universities, where we had a benchmarking exercise. Once the commission has made a pronouncement, who are you to contest it? For us in Uganda, it is slightly different. I think if we make some amendment on the Act, maybe it will be able to help us in such issues. A continuation of independence of an agency, it includes organizational independence demonstrated by official documentation, operational independence, the definitions and operations of the agencies, procedures and methods, nomination and appointment of qualified experts is done purely by the agency. Some of you have ever participated as experts in the activities of National Council. How we nominate you, we look at your qualification, we look at your experience, and we nominate you without any bias. And if the expert expresses conflict of interest, we do listen to that. See, independence of formal outcomes, the final decision of quality assurance activities remains the responsibility of the QA. Standard 5, policies, processes, and activities. The QAA shall undertake its quality assurance activities in accordance with the standards and the guidelines articulated. We looked at this in Part B of SGQA. It is important that higher education institutions trust the agency. The agencies are transparent, describe and publish the objectives and activities, including the scope of work, expertise, and interaction with the higher education institutions and other stakeholders. We do this on our website. Sometimes we organize conferences, like as I talk now, National Council is organizing a conference where the agency will be sharing some of these activities of National Council. So the public is invited to come up with the papers to present. Core activities of an institutional program: we have teaching, learning, research, and community engagement. This is clearly spelled out. Resources such as finances, staff, and learning resources are also spelled out. Specific areas such as levels of achievement, relative benchmarking, and types of measures are indicated. To carry out external quality assurance, the agency conducts institutional audits, accreditation and program accreditation, stock reviews on a regular basis. Initially, National Council never used to carry out institutional audits, but as a result of the demand from the Council, we have started conducting institutional audits. A team is identified, a team of experts, institution is communicated, and when we communicate to you, we clearly state what we love to find in that institution before the team is dispatched. A continuation: quality assurance review stroke assessment processes include validation of institutional self-assessment against the agency's standards and processes. Especially when the institution applies for a charter or classification, we require the institution to carry out what we call a self-assessment. That self-assessment is reviewed against the set standards. So based on that, the team is constituted that will further analyze the self-assessment. That is appointment of an external peer review panel. For us, we call it a verification team. This is followed by what we call a site visit by the review panel, which we call a verification team. And I strongly believe a good number of you have been participating in this exercise. So the oral report before review panel leaves the institution is provided. This is what we call a debrief, where the team gives you the preliminary highlights of their findings. E, preliminary report presented to the institution for factual corrections. F, final report of external review to the institution and follow-up activity. In this final report, there is a last section which we normally call observational findings. These findings are normally divided into two: areas of strength and areas of improvement. So the follow-up is on the areas of improvement. What has the institution done to address these areas of improvement? Standard 6, internal quality assurance. The quality assurance shall have in place policies and processes for its own internal quality assurance related to defining, assuring, and enhancing the quality and integrity of these activities. This internal quality assurance has the guidelines that will help the agency observe high professional standards, integrity by adhering to its guiding and ethical principles. When you are recruited to National Council, they will ask you to swear, take an oath. They will get some lawyers, then you take an oath to act professionally, and they will provide you with our ethical principles that you are expected to observe. A continuation of Standard 6 makes available internal quality assurance policies, standards, processes, and procedures on this website. If you visited the website of National Council for Higher Education, you will be able to see some of these policies, the standards, processes, and procedures. Where need be, you are even free to go physically to National Council and ask for some of these documents. The decisions are impartial, rigorous, thorough, fair, consistent. But you know human nature. They are decisions taken by an agency that, as human beings, don't see it as impartial. We have had situations whereby the institution takes us as police has come, or police is coming. And you really see restlessness among the staff. And because of that, whatever good thing you are doing will not be taken in good faith. Even if you raise some gaps, the institution will look at it as a way of witch hunting. They will not take it. Objectivity and fairness in its judgment, decisions, and conclusions, standards and guidelines for external quality assurance for higher education institutions are of general nature. When you look at these standards, they are bare minimum. You as a higher education institution, you are expected to use this as your basis, your foundation, so you can go above that. A continuation of Standard 6, contribution to establishment and to established national, regional, continental, and international mechanisms for integrity, transparency, and public accountability. All persons involved in its activities are competent and act professionally and ethically. Has timely internal and external feedback mechanisms that lead to continuous improvement within the agency. These are always carried out and the aim is on improvement. Guards against intolerance of any kind or discrimination, outlines the appropriate communication with the relevant authorities in those jurisdictions in which they operate. A good example is the professional bodies. National Council is a body that accredits programs. But when you look at the Act, in Section 119A, it brings out the issue of accreditation in consultation with professional bodies. When you are handling a professional program, for example, if it is nursing, you need to work hand in hand with the Nurses Council. If it is an engineering program, you have to work hand in hand with the Engineers Registration Board and so forth. Any activity carried out, any materials produced by consultants are in line with its standards and guidelines and those of HAQAA. Standard 6 continues. QAA ensures that standards and processes used for external quality assurance are predetermined, predefined, published, and made available to institutions ahead of external quality assurance procedures. You see, if you have trust in a regulatory body, you can have confidence in it to consult. But if you don't have trust, you have fear. If a team is coming to visit You will be free to ask, what exactly will you be interested in? Can we have your checklist? And you will be provided. The standards and the processes used to ensure quality and relevance of higher education. There is production of a summary of reports carried out. After the inspections have been carried out of verification, we, the technical people, sit down and make summaries. These summaries go to our council for analysis and for decision making. Standard 7 financial and human resources. The QA shall have adequate and appropriate human, financial, and material resources to carry out its QA mandate effectively and efficiently. A. Adequate funding to realize this vision, mission, and objectives. Initially, from National Council perspective, we used to rely on the collection of the 20,000 students pay. But as I talk now, the government has given us a vote. So we get the funding directly. We have a vote on top of the 20,000 students pay. B. You see, it will be unfair for an agency not to be properly funded. It will now bring in some illegal practices into the agency. B. Ensure it has adequate facilities matching with the QA activities. Standard 7, recruit adequate and qualified human resource to carry out these QA activities. And when you look at the recruitment, it factors in the issue of gender. So if you look at National Council, it is balanced. But you may find it slightly inclined on the ladies' side. Yeah? You will find that we have more ladies than men or gents. Yes. We also factor in the disadvantaged groups. For example, persons with disabilities. We don't discriminate during the selection. D. Carry out this external QA mandate professionally, effectively, and efficiently. Initially, we were understaffed. But as I talk now, the human resource seems to have been doubled a bit. But still, the number is small as compared to the number of higher education institutions. Inform the public about its activities and the results. National Council has tried its level best to be informing the public on the activities, the results, as from the outcome. For example, the institutions that are recognized, programs that are accredited, how the monitoring is done. But the challenge we have with the public is the information seems not to be reaching the target programs. For example, when you talk of accredited or recognized institutions, our clients have still continued to register in illegal institutions. Clients have continued running unaccredited programs. Clients have continued registering in unaccredited programs. You remember what happened last week? A university that we closed, the license was revoked. I think in 2017, 2018, went ahead and graduated the students. But that is a big challenge. We have been putting this on press, even on our website. When you check it, you will find it clearly indicated the following universities were closed. Where is the problem? most cases, our clients say National Council is the one that is not doing its role. We always organize regional workshops to sensitize the public on the legalities of some of these institutions. But you will find that few people turn up. Those days before the advent of COVID, we would organize what we call higher education exhibition, where we will create awareness on the public about these illegal institutions. But we shall try our best. Maybe quarterly, put it on the TV, newspapers. But newspapers, that's what we have been doing. But if you look at the issue of newspapers, how many people read newspapers? Just a sample ourselves here. Who read yesterday's newspaper? You may find none. One person. So that is a big challenge. It's a big challenge. Number 8, benchmarking, networking, and collaboration. The QA agency shall promote and participate in international initiatives, workshops, and conferences, and collaborate with the relevant bodies on the QA to exchange and share experiences and best practices. From the regulatory perspective, we have tried this. We one time divided ourselves into 2 teams. I was on the team that went to Tanzania, Commission for Universities. Another team went to Kenya, Commission for Universities for benchmarking. There was a time when a team went to, I think some people went to Nigeria, and one person went to UK for benchmarking exercise. The QA remains relevant in its activities. As a regulatory body, your main activity is quality assurance, so you have to remain relevant. Collaborates with all relevant bodies, such as professional bodies, especially when it comes to the accreditation of professional programs. There is need for this collaboration. Share accurate, reliable, and easily accessible information about standards. This is displayed or can be accessed on our website. D, contributes to the development or updating of appropriate regional, continental, and other institutional conventions on higher education. This is the reason why we normally organize those conferences. We have an annual conference where we share the experiences, where we make some updates on the developments. Remember when COVID hit, we had to immediately come up with what we call emergency guidelines, or DARE, that allowed some of the institutions to operate during lockdown. E, participates in bilateral or multi-sectoral agreements in higher education institutions. F, improves accessibility of up-to-date, accurate, comprehensive information about recognized higher education institutions. I've already said this. Lastly, we have standard 9, periodic review of QAA. There shall be periodic internal and external reviews for continuous improvement. From National Council perspective, we have what we call a strategic plan. We have mid-term milestones. So when the 5-year strategic plan moves maybe 2.5 years, we organize a review. Then when the 5 years end, we organize a total review to look at what should be dropped and what should be brought in. There must be a continuous QA. There must be continuous quality assurance of this board as a regulatory agency. Practices and activities that emphasize flexibility in response to the changing nature of higher education. Our education is not static. There is need for us to be dynamic in all our ways. And it is the reason why the programs have to be reviewed after a specified period of time. Effectiveness of its operation, this has to be looked at. And we also get feedback from you, the stakeholders, that there is a gap here that you address. It is contribution towards the achievement of its objectives. So that has to be looked at. Conclusion, a quality assurance agency shall therefore be a conducting a comprehensive internal self-assessment of its processes, practices, activities periodically, including data analysis. B, conducting periodic external review on the basis of self-assessment by regional, continental, or international quality assurance bodies, and ensures that required recommendations are discussed and implemented. These are made for the improvement of an agency. Some of these we have not been able to carry out, but 3/4 of these, as a regulatory body, we have been carrying out. Carrying out periodic reviews, preferably every 5 years. That is according to the strategic plan, a 5-year strategic plan. With this, we have been doing. Those who have not visited us, that is our building. Thank you for listening.
Can we give another hand clap to Thank you very much, Dr. Knight, for that presentation. We are going to be with Dr. Knight later in the afternoon when we are looking at the dialogue thing. So we shall go deep in the discussion. But in case there is something...
The technical people sit down and make summaries. These summaries go to our council for analysis and for decision making. Standard 7 financial and human resources. The QA shall have adequate and appropriate human, financial, and material resources to carry out its QA mandate effectively and efficiently. A, adequate funding to realize this vision, mission, and objectives. Initially, from National Council perspective, we used to rely on the collection of the 20,000 students pay. But as I talk now, the government has given us a vote. So we get the funding directly. We have a vote on top of the 20,000 students pay. B, you see, it will be unfair for an agency not to be properly funded. It will now bring in some illegal practices into the agency. B, ensure it has adequate facilities matching with the QA activities. Standard 7, recruit adequate and qualified human resource to carry out these QA activities. And when you look at the recruitment, it factors in the issue of gender. So if you look at National Council, it is balanced. But you may find it slightly inclined on the ladies' side. Yeah? You will find that we have more ladies than men or gents. Yes. We also factor in the disadvantaged groups. For example, persons with disabilities. We don't discriminate during the selection. B, carry out this external QA mandate professionally, effectively, and efficiently. Initially, we were understaffed, but as I talk now, the human resource seems to have been doubled a bit, but still, the number is small as compared to the number of higher education institutions. Inform the public about its activities and the results. National Council has tried its level best to be informing the public on the activities, the results, as probably outcome. For example, the institutions that are recognized, programs that are accredited, how the monitoring is done. But the challenge we have with the public is the information seems not to be reaching the target programs. For example, when you talk of accredited or recognized institutions, our clients have still continued to register in illegal institutions. Clients have continued running unaccredited programs. Clients have continued registering in unaccredited programs. Remember what happened last week? A university that we closed, the license was revoked. I think in 2017, 2018, went ahead and graduated the students. But that is a big challenge. We have been putting this on press. Even on our website, when you check it, you will find it clearly indicated the following universities were closed. Where is the problem? In most cases, our clients say National Council is the one that is not doing its role. We always organize regional workshops to sensitize the public on the legalities of some of these institutions. But you will find that few people turn up. Those days before the advent of COVID, we would organize what we call a higher education exhibition, where we will create awareness on the public about these illegal institutions. But we shall try our best. Maybe quarterly, put it on TV, newspapers. But newspapers, that's what we have been doing. But if you look at the issue of newspapers, how many people read newspapers? Just a sample ourselves here. Who read yesterday's newspaper? You may find none. One person. So that is a big challenge. It's a big challenge. Number 8, benchmarking, networking, and collaboration. The QA agency shall promote and participate in international initiatives, workshops, and conferences, and collaborate with the relevant bodies on QA to exchange and share experiences and best practices. From the regulatory perspective, we have tried this. We one time divided ourselves into 2 teams. I was on the team that went to Tanzania, Commission for Universities. Another team went to Kenya, Commission for Universities for benchmarking. There was a time when a team went to, I think some people went to Nigeria, and one person went to UK for benchmarking exercise. A, the QA remains relevant in its activities. As a regulatory body, your main activity is quality assurance, so you have to remain relevant. Collaborates with all relevant bodies, such as professional bodies, especially when it comes to the accreditation of professional programs. There is need for this collaboration. Share accurate, reliable, and easily accessible information about standards. This is displayed or can be accessed on our website. D, contributes to the development or updating of appropriate regional, continental, and other institutional conventions on higher education. This is the reason why we normally organize those conferences. We have our annual conference where we share the experiences, where we make some updates on the developments. You remember when COVID hit, we had to immediately come up with what we call emergency guidelines, or DARE, that allowed some of the institutions to operate during lockdown. E, participates in bilateral or multi-sectoral agreements in higher education institutions. F, improves accessibility of up-to-date, accurate, comprehensive information about recognized higher education institutions. I've already said this. Lastly, we have standard 9, periodic review of QAA. There shall be periodic internal and external reviews for continuous improvement. From National Council perspective, we have what we call a strategic plan. We have mid-term milestones. So when the 5-year strategic plan moves maybe 2.5 years, we organize a review. Then when the 5 years end, we organize a total review to look at what should be dropped and what should be brought in. There must be continuous QA. There must be continuous quality assurance of this code as a regulatory agency. Practices and activities that emphasize flexibility in response to the changing nature of higher education. Our education is not static. There is need for us to be dynamic in all our ways. And it is the reason why the programs have to be reviewed after a specified period of time. Effectiveness of this operation, this has to be looked at, and we also get feedback from you, the stakeholders, that there is a gap here, can you address? It is contribution towards the achievement of its objectives. So that has to be looked at. Conclusion, a quality assurance agency shall therefore be A, conducting a comprehensive internal self-assessment of these processes, practices, activities periodically, including data analysis. B, conducting periodic external review on the basis of self-assessment by regional, continental, or international quality assurance bodies, and ensures that required recommendations are discussed and implemented. These are meant for the improvement of an agency. Some of these we have not been able to carry out, but 3/4 of these, as a regulatory body, we have been carrying out. Carrying out periodic reviews, preferably every 5 years. That is according to the strategic plan, a 5-year strategic plan. With this, we have been doing. Those who have not visited us, that is our building. Thank you for listening.
Can we give another hand clap to Thank you very much, Dr. Knight, for that presentation. We are going to be with Dr. Knight later in the afternoon when we we are looking at the dialogue thing, so we shall go deep in the discussion. But in case there is something
if you are an ambassador, you carry on and articulate the philosophies of the country. Therefore, we also carry on this culture assurance framework and articulate it in our universities. If we can do that in our institutions, then we shall give periodical reports to transfer education for information. Because there are challenges in the process. But in order for us to live with that legacy and operate within that framework, we should endeavor to do that. So that's what I wanted to add.
NCHE also wants to undertake activities for continuous improvement, including internal and external assessments. So maybe later you'll be able maybe to give us an idea of what strategies you're going to use as NCHE for internal and external self-assessments as you take on the youth. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Onyait, for the elaborate speech and giving us the mandate of the quality assurance agencies. However, I have a concern. In most cases, our institutions, before they are chartered, they try to work hard to make sure that they put in place whichever is required. But sometimes, after these institutions acquiring the charter, they do relax. Most especially when it comes to paying staff. And they don't seriously observe what they ought to do when it comes to the payments. And also following up certain mandates in their organizations. My question is, what's the agency's strategy to make sure that some of these institutions, having acquired the charter, they keep on board, following each and everything, most especially having qualified staff and ensuring that the qualified staff are paid according to their qualifications. Thank you.
Thank you very much for all those observations. Godfrey, do you want to make any comment on this? Just a brief one, because we shall have a discussion later. Just be brief and straight to the point.
Thank you. Thank you, participants, and thank you, my colleague, for the concern you have raised. It is true. A charter is the highest level of accreditation for universities and for other degree awarding, while for other tertiary institutions, it is a certificate of classification and registration. That is the highest level of accreditation. It is true, some institutions, upon attaining that highest level, they relax. They feel, they even say, hallelujah, we have reached. You get it? So they relax. What National Council does is this. First, before I make a remark on this, is that charter not a permanent thing. It can be cancelled, it can be revoked. The moment you go outside the limits, then we raise a flag, warning you that, hey, you have gone beyond your limits. So, we keep on monitoring, we keep on carrying audits in these institutions. We also carry out some reviews. Then that charter there, or that certificate of classification and registration, is not a permanent thing. It has a lifespan. 5 years, it expires. So if you have relaxed, we shall ask you to give accountability from the time you are chartered to the time you are in applying for re-accreditation. So from there, we shall be able to identify some of those gaps and advise you accordingly. So we don't fall back, we keep on monitoring. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Uma. Good morning, colleagues, once more. I must say that Dr. Onyait has clearly explained the standards and guidelines for external quality assurance agencies, such as the National Council for Higher Education. What I'm going to do is highlight other agencies in the region and also refer you to the Inter-University Council for Higher Education instrument that explains the different higher education councils and commissions in the region. And then I will conclude by highlighting that the Inter-University Council Inter-University Council for East Africa is also a quality assurance agency for that matter. So, just a quick overview of what Dr. Onyait has highlighted is that Part C of the African Standards and Guidelines for Quality Assurance focuses on internal quality assurance of quality assurance agencies. So it means that the quality assurance is not just only for universities, that the national councils and commissions equally have to ensure quality of their own so that they can be able to ensure quality of the higher education institutions. So this is the focus of this particular Part C. It is intended to be used by the quality assurance agencies themselves to ensure the quality of their own activities, as Dr. Onyait highlighted. It can also be used by these agencies to conduct internal self-assessment as well as external assessment of the agency by peers. I know Dr. Onyait has moved, but in the afternoon perhaps you can discuss with him whether the National Council has conducted a comprehensive internal self-assessment of its own. And as key stakeholders, you and me, we should be involved in assessing the National Council for Higher Education. That's what these standards and guidelines require. That we, as stakeholders, we should be able to assess the National Council for Higher Education of its own activities, because we're internal part of the quality assurance system of the council. The Part C provides for 9 standards and several guidelines that Dr. Onyait has clearly explained. And I'm just highlighting these 9 key standards and guidelines, or their key requirements. He has done us a good job by going through each of these and explaining the key principles and key guidelines that define this. The legal status, it must be clearly defined. The mandate of these councils and commissions must be clearly defined, and that they must have powers, legal powers, to execute what they do. Second is that its mission and vision must be clearly published. We must know, all the stakeholders, when I say we, especially higher education institutions, we ought to know the vision and the mission of the National Council for Higher Education and other regulatory bodies like the commissions in the region. The governance structure and the management of these institutions is also required to be clearly defined, well laid out structures. It must have a governing board, a council in our case here, or a commission, and that commission or council must have also other subcommittees to effect its operation. And Onyait highlighted, for instance, the Quality Assurance Committee of the National Council, the Planning and the Finance Committee of the National Council, and then the main National Council itself as a council, as a body. The fourth one is the independence of the agency, and this is a very critical matter. Independence of the organization, free from influences, free from pressures, external pressures. But we do know, both here in this country and outside, that these agencies sometimes receive a lot of pressure from politicians or from political powers. You see the advantage of not being in the organization, so I speak freely as such. So I am immune because I am not a staff of the National Council. So there is pressure, and there's no doubt about that these institutions receive pressure. But what these guidelines and standards are saying is that they must act independently, regardless of these political pressures that come on these organizations. You may, for instance, recall in the last 2 weeks, there's been a lot of debate and discussion about a graduate from Ugandan University. Have you read that story? Which one? The Kenyan story about Team University and a graduate. You have followed that? You must follow, actually. That's what I'm saying. You must follow this story because it has a lot to do with the quality assurance systems in our country and in our higher education institutions. I'm not questioning the quality assurance system of Team University, but I'm saying the fact that that matter has arisen, it is asking us and asking Team to explain this internal quality assurance system from admission to graduation. And I can tell you there's a lot of political pressure on that case. Why? Because that graduate is what? Is a political candidate. So when I say that these agencies are not free from political pressure, now you understand. There's a lot of pressure. Kampala University, you had that case of Jogo. Huh? A lot of pressure. So these agencies are not free. There is always a lot of pressure. But the standards are requiring the agencies to act independently, both in their operations, in their decisions, and in their conduct, and in their final judgment. But the final judgment can be contested in courts. And that is the case now in Kenya. The Commission for Higher Education, the Commission for University Education in Kenya issued a statement regarding this graduate. But that statement is being challenged in courts of law in Kenya. Very interesting. So it can be challenged. The fifth standard regards policies, processes, and activities. And Onyait has already explained very clearly the required procedure for monitoring, procedures for grant of charter, procedures for revocation of license, and so on and so forth. So internally, these agencies need to define these procedures, policies, guidelines very clearly, and publish them so that they are well known. 6 is internal quality assurance system. that the policies and processes of these agencies need to be subjected to internal quality assurance system. Finance and human resources, he has explained very elaborately. The agencies must have adequate human resources to execute their activities. They must have adequate financial resources to be able to execute their mandate more effectively. I am not sure whether the National Council has sufficient funding because they have always pride of inadequate funding of their activities. Benchmarking, networking, and collaboration. I want to emphasize this component in regards to the region. All the national councils and commissions in East Africa, they have a memorandum of understanding of working together. That's part of the collaboration and networking among themselves. For instance, agreement for mutual recognition of qualifications. So that's why the Commission for University Education in Kenya can write to the National Council for Higher Education and ask about an issue of a graduate from one of the universities in Uganda. That's part of their agreement. That's part of their collaboration among themselves as such. So that the qualifications that are obtained in Uganda can be recognized in Kenya, can be recognized in Tanzania, can be recognized in Rwanda, and so on and so forth. But the last one, for me, is the most important. And I really want to ask the National Council to pay attention to this. Periodic review of its own agency. It should undergo periodic self-assessment and external assessment. I returned from Ivory Coast 2 weeks ago, Abidjan, and we're having a continental meeting on HAQAA, the same HAQAA II. The Inter-University Council for East Africa is a member of the advisory board of HAQAA II. So the executive secretary asked me to represent him in that meeting. And in that very meeting, we received a report of the implementation of particularly this standard for the national councils and commissions in Africa in a pilot survey. So the national councils and commissions in Africa, one from West Africa, one from East Africa, one from Southern Africa, and one from North Africa, we are subjected to first internal self-assessment, and then they are being subjected to external peer assessment. And external peer assessment is coming from the European Quality Assurance Network and the international network of higher education quality assurance agencies, INQUIRE. So those two agencies are sending experts to assess, as external bodies, to assess the internal quality assurance systems of the agencies. That is what I want to see in ours too. Now I'm lowering my voice.
Why?
For diplomatic purposes.
Who should be ahead first?
So, having highlighted those standards and giving some highlights from the East African perspective, I want to say that the East African Community Partner States have established quality assurance agencies. All of them, the 6. Of course, now we have 7 countries. Congo is yet in the process of full integration with the community, but the 6 countries that we have been already working with have established quality assurance agencies. The National Commission for Higher Education, Burundi, the Commission for University Education, Kenya, the Higher Education Council, HAQAA, of Rwanda, the Tanzania Commission for Universities in Tanzania, and of course the National Council for Higher Education in Uganda. These 5 are well established, I must say, and they are functional, and they have been in operation for some years now. The oldest of these is the Kenya, the Commission for University Education in Kenya, which used to be called the Commission for Higher Education in Kenya. That's the oldest, established in 1985. Followed by Uganda, which was established in 2001, followed by Tanzania, which was established in 2005, and followed by Rwanda, and then Burundi, and the most recent, which was established late last year, is the National Council for Higher Education of the Republic of South Sudan. It is still in infancy. It has very limited staffing and limited capacity. It is still operating within the Ministry of Education, but it has already begun the process of establishing a functional national quality assurance agency. I want to refer you to this instrument, the Inter-University Council for East Africa Handbook, Volume 5. I know you are aware of Volume 1, 2, 3, 4. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, now I'm telling you that it's Volume 5.
Yeah.
Volume 1 and 2 relates to what?
Program.
Program assessment.
And administration.
Volume 3 relates to
Institutional
assessment. Volume 4 relates to
internal quality assurance self-assessment.
I'm looking at my students
Yeah.
and they are not responding.
Internal.
Like this young man, like Angela and
We are still
and
young. We are still
Amina
young. We are young.
and
but funny.
Habib, Mandela, and David,
This one is
and Farida.
Yeah.
These are my students of national multiplication training. And remember, the subject of our training was what? Internal quality assurance systems. And that was volume what?
Volume 4.
Volume 4. And we circulated. Now you're not telling me. Okay. So that, by the way, that volume 4 is extremely important for us. If you are working in quality assurance unit, you must use that handbook because it helps you to establish an internal quality assurance system. Especially I'm addressing myself now to my two new colleagues. Please refer to that volume 4 when you're establishing your internal quality assurance system. The kind of activities that you need to do in quality assurance work, they are all defined there. How the processes are operating, how you can establish your structure, and so on and so forth. So that is volume 4. Now volume 5 is on the quality assurance agencies. I just want to show you briefly this volume 5. I was privileged to lead the team that developed this volume 5 with my colleague whom we just remembered, Rispa, who was representing Kenya. Uganda was represented by Dr. Pius. Rwanda was represented by Dr. Abdallah. Burundi was represented by Dr. Bigirimana. Of course, Professor Mike Kuria was there, and Kosam and Juru from the IUCA Secretariat. So this is the volume 5. I am not going to read through it, but it concerns principles, practices, and management of external quality assurance in East Africa. So it's about the principles, the practices, and the management of the quality assurance agencies in East Africa. And I'm saying that I would like you to refer to this for detailed analysis of all the 9 core standards that we were talking about earlier on, the legal mandate of each of these, the mission and the vision of each of these, the governance structure of each of these, the finance and so on. All these have been defined and analyzed extensively, especially of the 5 countries. South Sudan was not yet in when this document was developed in 2015. So it gives a thorough analysis of each of these agencies, and we are going to circulate this handbook. It will be circulated to all of you so that you can make reference to it. But I just want to use the table of content to highlight. So the quality assurance principles and practices in East Africa, that's section 4 is the gist of it. It talks about each of these. As you can see, 4.2, the National Commission for Higher Education Burundi gives its background, the structure of the Burundian education system, the legal framework, the quality assurance tools adopted by this commission, the processes, the QA processes followed by the commission, the management of the decisions of quality assurance given by that commission, and so on and so forth. Then 4.3 goes to the Commission for University Education Kenya. It gives a background of the commission, the legal framework, the governance, the quality assurance tools and instruments, the quality assurance principles, the processes and steps in ensuring quality of university education in Kenya, among others. 4.4 is the Higher Education Council of Rwanda. It gives the background, the legal framework, the governance, the quality assurance tools, and so on and so forth. So it goes on to cover all the 5 councils and commissions. So I am not going to go into the details. There is particularly, you can note down table 7 and table 8. Table 7 and table 8 gives a very good snapshot of each of these commissions and councils within the East African region. Table 7 and table 8 gives a good summary analysis and comparative analysis on each of these key elements of quality assurance agencies in East Africa. So, I go back to my presentation. So, Henry is going to circulate this together with the other documents, including the African standards and guidelines for quality assurance services. Yeah, I also have to put that in here. Yes. So we will circulate, and then you can make reference to it so that you know what is within the region. Finally, I want to briefly talk about the Inter-University Council for East Africa as a quality assurance agency, as a regional quality assurance agency. Right from the start, I want to make this clear that the Inter-University Council for East Africa is different from the national councils and commissions by its mandate. The national councils and commissions have a mandate to regulate the higher education institutions in their country. The Inter-University Council for Higher Education does not have a mandate to regulate, but it has a mandate to guide. In law, those are 2 things. The power to guide and the power to enforce. So the Inter-University Council for Higher Education does not regulate and therefore does not enforce, but it guides. It guides the commissions and guides the higher education institutions within the region. So its mandate is to harmonize the higher education system in East Africa, to promote research in the region, but more particularly to promote quality assurance systems in the East African community. These are, I'm making that summary of the 3 key mandates of the Inter-University Council for East Africa. Under each of these, there are so many things that go with it. Harmonization of higher education, there are so many things that go with that. Research is a key component of our mandate, and of course, most of you are aware of the quality assurance processes. And I think most of us have been involved in Inter-University Council for East Africa, mainly with regards to the quality assurance processes. The functions of this agency the Inter-University Council for East Africa are well defined in its Act of 2009, and I will highlight some of those functions shortly. So therefore, by all standards, the Inter-University Council for East Africa is a quality assurance agency, a regional quality assurance agency with a clearly defined mandate by its Act. It has vision and mission. It has governance and management structure. We have the executive board, which is the top organ, and it has quality assurance committee. We have the higher education, the common higher education area committee. We have scholarship and mobility, students mobility committee, planning and management committee. So we have committees that are part of the structure, the management and the governance of the Inter-University Council for East Africa. And all these are defined within the Act and within its statutes. It has policies, procedures for internal use, and because it is an agency of the East African community, so all the policies, the procedures, and the guidelines of the East African community apply to the Inter-University Council for East Africa. So I am an employee, not only of the Inter-University Council for East Africa, but I'm also an employee of the East African community. I should be enjoying
Diplomats.
but because I'm in my own country, I cannot enjoy those diplomatic status, except a few which are guaranteed for nationals within the country. But my colleagues from Kenya, Rwanda, Burundi, they enjoy all the diplomatic immunities and privileges as such, because it is an agency of the East African community. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to emphasize this, that when we mapped out in the entire global higher education quality assurance system, the Inter-University Council for East Africa is the only regional body that has a legal mandate to guide on quality assurance. It's the only one. The only one. And now we have realized that we have been taking it for granted, and yet we have this privileged status. Southern Africa, where SADC is, they have SARUA. It's not an agency of SADC. So it's not established by law. In Anglophone Africa, you have what they call CAMES. CAMES is in French. I don't want to pretend to know French. It is also an association. In North Africa, they have the Arab Association of Quality Assurance Agencies, and it's not established by law. So when we mapped global, we realized that the Inter-University Council for East Africa is the only regional body, and that's why we have had the leverage really to do what we have been doing within the region very easily compared to the other regions in Africa. And that's why the continental efforts in harmonizing quality assurance are always benchmarking with the Inter-University Council for East Africa. So when you hear when I say RISPA was the lead person for the development of the African standards, it's because of the East African rich experience in this process. So that is the Inter-University Council for East Africa as a regional quality assurance agency. I will emphasize again, the Inter-University Council for East Africa does not regulate. It does what? It guides. It provides guidance. It establishes frameworks to guide higher education institutions. It establishes framework to guide the national councils and commissions within the region, but does not regulate. That's why it does not accredit institutions. But we are already moving forward to another level of accrediting programs, regional accreditation of programs. This is something that I want to let you know in advance, but it's something that is coming. Now, the regional accreditation of program is not going to be the way the national councils do. The national councils have a legal mandate to regulate and accredit the program, to run legally. Now, the Inter-University Council for Higher Education would like to add a step forward, a step above the national commissions and councils, to accredit a program that is accredited at the national level, regionally, on quality, on basis of quality. That yes, your program meets the national requirements, it is legally recognized, but we want to define, we want to accredit it on the point of quality. And therefore we will give a quality seal for regionally accredited programs. We have already received so many universities expressing interest to have their programs regionally accredited, because it raises the bar higher. It is expected by many international bodies, you know. So we want to support our institutions in the region by moving forward to regional accreditation of programs, to give a quality seal, not a legal seal, a quality seal. But we work with the national commissions and councils in that regard. So a program to be accredited at the regional level must be accredited at the national level as first requirement. So it is legally recognized, and then it can move to the regional level for quality accreditation. So that is something that is coming, but it's still within the mandate of guiding, not regulating the higher education. The Act, I said the Act of IUCA is the legal body that defines the functions of this council. And Section 4 of this Act provides that the Inter-University Council shall contribute in developing quality assurance processes. Remember when Nyait was talking about the 9 standards, the emphasis that for an agency to qualify to be a quality assurance agency, its focus must be on quality assurance. And so the Inter-University Council for East Africa's focus is on quality assurance. And particularly, its functions defined under sections 6C include, for instance, the facilitation of harmonized entry standards in partnership with partner states accreditation councils, examination boards, and relevant university bodies. The Inter-University Council for East Africa does not work in isolation. It works with the national councils and commissions in whatever it does. In fact, the executive directors, executive secretaries of all the commissions and councils in East Africa are permanent members of the IUCA Quality Assurance Committee and Higher Education, Common Higher Education Area Committee. They are permanent members. So whoever becomes an executive director of National Council is a member, automatically a member of the Quality Assurance Committee. So it works together with the councils and commissions in all these processes. The Inter-University Council is also required to develop criteria for assessing standards and ensuring the quality of teaching, research, and quality assurance mechanisms for self-evaluation. And you will appreciate that the Inter-University Council over the years has developed several standards, the ones we're referring to. Standards for postgraduate training and research and supervision, standards on disability, standards for students' mobility and staff mobility within the region, standards for programs, what we call the benchmark documents of the Inter-University Council for East Africa, and so on and so forth. And all the volumes 1, 2, 3, 4, which provides guidelines for evaluation, self-evaluation and external evaluation. So, but the last one, as you can see, that the council, the Inter-University Council for East Africa, shall ensure quality through endorsing all approved programs by accreditation bodies in the partner states. Endorsing. The language is very carefully framed here. Endorsing. So it does not just automatically accredit, but it endorses what has been accredited at the national level. This is what I was talking about, that we are now moving towards that process of providing regional accreditation for programs within the East African region, but after going through the national accreditation for program courses. The Inter-University Council for East Africa has used in developing the East African Regional Quality Assurance System, and one of them is development of quality assurance guidelines, standards, procedures, and as I already highlighted, the volumes 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are all in that regard as a strategy for harmonizing the higher education system and for harmonizing the quality assurance system in the region. So we have spent a lot of efforts, and we continue to spend a lot of efforts in the development of standards, procedures, policies, and so on and so forth. Some of the most recent ones we are developing on recognition of prior learning. We are developing policies and procedures for recognition of prior learning. We are developing standards for norms, for regional norms, among others. The second one is mainstreaming the regional standards, guidelines, and procedures and benchmarks to the national and institutional level. And I want to credit you, the institutions in Uganda, for being very active members of HAQAA, especially in the use of its instruments. You can clap for yourself. And can I tell you one thing? There was a survey done by the HAQAA before I joined the organization. They got a consultant to look at the communication system of HAQAA in the region and how information from HAQAA reaches the universities. Can I tell you, to the greatest of my satisfaction, the report says it is the quality assurance officers in the universities that provide information about HAQAA to their member universities. That was the highest rating. I was so excited. And I knew that you were doing extremely fantastic job. So whenever we communicate as HAQAA, it is often you that actually disseminate to your member faculty, students, and so on and so forth. And there are many of these opportunities. So whenever we send this information to you, please disseminate. Because that role you are doing has now been formally recognized as very vital. And that's why the Inter-University Council pays a lot of attention to the quality assurance networks in the countries and in the region. Capacity building has been one of the key things. The Inter-University Council for East Africa has been doing a lot of capacity building to enhance the capacity of quality assurance officers in the region. And this has been an ongoing process, starting from 2007 until it's going on. Myself and Dr. Ochaya were among the pioneer trainees of HAQAA in 2007. And I'm happy that we have continued the journey. We still remain within the quality assurance fraternity. Holding quality assurance dialogue events, and this has been also a continuous process that has been going on, including organizing higher education fora, which bring all the vice chancellors, all the commissions and the councils together to dialogue on a number of higher education developments in the region. And lastly is the quality assurance networking, which has been a very vital instrument in promoting the regional quality assurance processes. Dr. Amala and myself, we are among the pioneer executive members of this network. I always bring this historic photograph for remembrance. This was 2012. So these are 10 years now. Here should be celebrating its 10 years birthday. 10 years. Because it was 2012, now we're in 2022. So those are 10 years, no? So it was 10 years last May, actually. So 10 years of growth. Well, HAQAA is how many years now? 12 of sustained growth as such. So congratulations, HAQAA, and congratulations, dear Khan, for the growth, and especially continuing to build capacity of quality assurance agencies. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to stop here and request if there are comments, questions, I would be glad to take.
Thank you very much, Prof. I think you've all been excited to pick most of these issues, and I'm sure we all have aha moments from that presentation. Thank you very much, Prof. Before we receive your aha moments, I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate Prof. Remember, most of us were congratulating him using the platforms. I think this is an opportunity for us to formally congratulate him on this promotion when we can see him. Prof, congratulations. For those of you who have just seen Prof, he'll give you his story, how he has reached where he is. And to me, I think that is an encouragement to all of us to work hard at whatever we've decided to put our hands on, and that is QA in our higher education institutions. As Dr. Amal says, the mind is the limit.
My different background, but I was doing these things from a government point of view, so, but I was very much related with the universities and other training institutions. Just two things. One is on mobility of students. We have been struggling right from the other side where I was to work out how we can have students transfer their credits from university to university. Recognized. I don't know your level of involvement at the University Council for East Africa. Of course, your friend is not here, you have told us, but probably Mr. There will provide that. Number two, in our medical profession, we have HAQAA, which is part of the East Africa, but HAQAA is East Central and Southern Africa. It's HAQAA community. We have developed professional courses. Some of these are fellowships, and they are mounted at Arusha at our headquarters. We have gone ahead to do harmonization of curriculum. And in terms of inspection, our medical schools are inspected at two levels. One by Council for Education here in Uganda, and also we have the South African Council that comes to inspect our universities, our medical schools. Now, are you working together to provide to agree on those standards? To give me hope that if I'm an obstetrician in Uganda, I take the other ophthalmologist, I take the professional course at Arusha. I'm therefore recognized both in the mainstream education system and at the level of profession, because our professional courses are accredited and they are accredited by the Indian itself, the community, which is based at Arusha. Those two questions. Thank you.
Let's make them brief. That we have enough time.
Thank you so much, Prof, for the presentation. I've really learned a lot think I used to assume so many things about IUCA. I've learned more. I remember 3 mandates for IUCA. One of them, I wrote them here, promotion of harmony, harmonization. Then the other is promotion of research. Another is promotion of quality assurance systems. The part that I'm really interested in, that felt my was aha moment was that promotion of research. What I know, one of the ways how you've been managing to promote that research is mobility. And that mobility has come out, but not the way we have been expecting, especially for staff. Some of us, at least in my university, Uganda Christian University, we apply for that mobility and you don't get a single response, maybe acknowledgement, or it's like you throw in some abyss area. Please work on that. And then there is that part where you mentioned that these initiatives are sent to universities. What happens in most cases that those initiatives are sent to our VCs and PCs who don't read their emails. They just delete, and the quality assurance officers never get to know. That we've said it over and over again. Please work on it harder. We are investing that. Otherwise, we miss out a lot on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, President. Thank you so much for insightful presentation. My aha moment comes when you make a remark that as stakeholders we must assess the regulatory body and we must ask that question. And what came to my mind is, much as we evaluate other units, much as we evaluate others, we must at least evaluate ourselves first. I experienced this last week when I was interviewed by the Director of Institutional Planning at our university, and he was asking me about my achievements as QA. I told him I successfully evaluated staff at campus level, and he was like, "You're a lecturer yourself." Now, when you're extracting information, feedback from students, and you find that you're also being underscored, what do you do? So I simply told him that I study the tool and I make sure I implement at least what the tool requires from the staff. So let's evaluate ourselves before we evaluate others. Thanks for this.
Any other comments, or they will come in later? Okay. Before Prof comes in, there are 2-3 issues I noted that I thought we could share. One is the possibility to have our programs pitched at the regional level. So us as the internal QA officers is to make sure that we have our programs accredited at the national level well in time, and then we use that to excite management to allow us start the process of pitching our programs at the regional level. So that, that is a benefit to the university coming from you as a QA officer. 2, I'm happy that we are going to be getting this document, the roadmap to quality volume 5. I'm excited to see what it looks like, and I'm sure so are all of us seated here. Thank you very much, Prof. Then Prof mentioned the recognition of prior learning. I think this is going to open up the education sector even bigger. Because remember, we are having, for example, the Tibet area, we are having people who have the expertise, for example, playing a brick. You don't have to teach that in school. They know it from the lower levels. So if they want to go up in the academic arena, they have not been having a way of, I think I'm correct, they've not been having a way of how to add on or to have qualifications to actually show the public that I'm able to do A, B, C, D. So I think this is a very good step, and I think it will be added on the East African Qualifications Framework. And let's task National Council to also link the Ugandan Qualifications Framework to the TVET sector, so that we are able to have that cross-pollination in the education sector of this country. Having said that, I think Prof will welcome you. I want just remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think your remarks are really central to the current discussion and debate, and especially about recognition of prior learning and linking TVET to the other education system. This is very vital, and this is really the developments now at the region and also international at the continental level. We at the IUCA, we just approved a qualifications framework for TVET, and we have already made a linkage between the TVET qualifications framework and the higher education, the East African qualifications framework for higher education. So that linkage now we have made it. So it's very important that we do recognize our experienced, skilled people who have not attained formal education and formal qualifications to be able to grow and become great persons. And that is the path through which they can grow. Mobility of students within the region. The East African community, the IUCA particularly, developed credit accumulation and transfer system policy. That policy is available. And at the national level, the national councils and commissions have equally developed credit accumulation and transfer policies. In Uganda, we have the credit accumulation and transfer policy. Tanzania has a very comprehensive SQA handbook that policy, and Kenya and others. At the African level, there is already a proposal for the African continental credit accumulation and transfer policy, which is being discussed and considered. So there has been effort to try to establish a system that will recognize students moving from one institution to another, to be able to transfer their credits and proceed with their education accordingly, without having to lose what they have attained at any level. For us at IUCA, these are very important instruments because they also facilitate what we have, our program of student mobility within the region. So our students are able to move based on the existing policies as such. So when we give scholarships to students of Uganda going to Kenya or Tanzania, it's part of the mobility program. And that the qualification attained in Uganda can be recognized in Kenya or Tanzania is part of the system of mobility of students. The second question you raised was about accreditation of medical programs, especially at the East African level. I am fully aware about the contention and about the challenges of the East African Medical Council and what it has done in the region and the challenges that it has caused in the training of medical professionals in the region, especially when they go ahead and close the medical school, which has been accredited at the national level. It has always been challenged whether they have a legal mandate to close an institution that has been accredited at the national level and so on. But I think after so many years of negotiations and consensus building, the East African Medical Council has now come to realize that they have to work in consultation with the other agencies, including the national councils and commissions and the national professional bodies in the country. The Uganda National Medical and Dental Practitioners Council in Uganda and also in the other countries. So they have now learned to work with these agencies so that their decisions cannot be challenged. They posed a very serious problem in Tanzania, to the extent that the Parliament of Tanzania had to come in and intervene. I know they caused also the same problem here in Uganda. I know here suffered a bit of that pain and so on. But I think now continuously this is being harmonized. We have been also in pain as IUC that we are the ones with the legal mandate in the region to oversee the quality of higher education in the region. But this medical council has not been working with us. So you see the problem. So we have also been disappointed, but now at least there's consensus that we are moving forward together. Professor Sarah, you raised the issue of research and mandate of IUCN, and particularly the issue of staff mobility. Now, these are two things. One, that the research mandate of IUCN is still very, I must say, is still very limited. We have not expanded on that mandate fully because of lack of staff. We have not had sufficient staff at the Secretariat to coordinate research in the region. But now we have already recruited staff in the Research and Innovations Unit, and that function and that mandate, I'm sure is going to begin to shine the way quality assurance has progressed. That's one. But we have already been promoting researchers, a number of researchers in the region, which are ongoing, and others have been concluded at the regional level. But your major concern was about the staff mobility program. One, that this program is not widely disseminated. And two, when institutions apply, you don't receive feedback. There are two ways. By the way, this is one of the programs that is very much appreciated by higher education institutions in the region. Monica, Kabari, you even made it public in your graduation, acknowledging IUCN for supporting the staff mobility and bringing experts to Kabari University.
We have like two from Tanzania, one from Rwanda, and our two staff also.
And you also sent two out as such. So it's one of the programs that has really been highly appreciated. But
Prof,
yes,
what Dr. Rita said, sending letters to vice chancellors.
she's the one who said that.
Yeah. Because our vice chancellor is very keen on that.
Yeah.
How she receives letters from inter-university, she sends to staff.
Yeah.
But maybe you may find her VC is too busy to read those mails.
Yeah, that is the issue she was raising about the dissemination and communication. Now, most of these IUCA opportunities are available on the website. All of them actually, including the student and staff mobility program. So from time to time, please interest yourself, go to the IUCA website and download any opportunity that is announced there. The staff mobility, I want to emphasize, the staff mobility is extremely important, even for QA. But I know that our universities have not been utilizing that. It has always been a staff coming to teach or a staff going to teach. But this program also will support staff coming for QA activities, including external examination. You know, external examination is a QA process. So you can get an external person to come and do external examination, and it's paid under the IUCA staff mobility program. That's a QA process. You can also collaborate with another QA person in another university to spend some time there, to benchmark, to work together on certain policies and programs, together, jointly. Or the other way around, you can invite someone from another country to come. So it's open. It's a staff mobility. It doesn't say teaching staff. It is a staff mobility program. Yeah. So please, you can apply. But the best thing, Sarah, to respond specifically to your concern, the best thing is always to identify the expert from outside first. and agree with that expert, even on the time frame, even on the activities, and then you apply jointly. Rather than you see you apply and we want experts in this area. So it takes the council time to find an equivalent expert match with your interest. But if you have already negotiated, discussed, and agreed with an expert, maybe from Kenya or from Tanzania, you apply jointly, and the document provides for you to sign all. Once you do that and you submit, the process is much easier. And I think that's what HAQAA has been doing. Busitema has been doing that quite a lot. In fact, at one point, Busitema staff, Busitema was benefiting highest in terms of the staff mobility program. So take interest and pursue that. And lastly, my sister Amina has emphasized the issue of self-assessment. We need to pay attention to self-assessment, including as QA units. We need to do our own assessment of our system continuously, so that you can actually improve on your system. That's why in the National Application Training we have been emphasizing on self-assessment of your system. Know how your system operates and how you can respond to the needs of your institution better.